20 shots tore into the rear of a car, killing Alex Shirley and critically injuring his friend Sophie Hagee. Shirley was the son of reality TV personality Ronnie Shirley from the show Lizard Lick Towing. Although Hagee survived, she's now paralyzed from the waist down.
The show Lizard Lick Towing was loud and full of chaos, with wild repossessions, fights, and non-stop drama that kept viewers watching. Then, without warning, it suddenly disappeared from television. Fans were left shocked and confused as the cameras went off and the crew slowly faded away from the spotlight. But behind the scenes, life was changing in ways no one really saw or understood. Fame did not last. Tensions began to rise, and personal struggles started to grow. Everything shifted very fast. So what truly caused it all to end, and where is the crew now? Join us in this video as we reveal the details. What happened to Lizard Lick Towing? Lizard Lick Towing was not just a show that people watched and then forgot about. It was one of those shows that slowly pulled people in, held their attention, and then kept them coming back again and again. It aired between 2011 and 2014 on True TV, and during that time, it became something many viewers could not easily ignore. At first, it looked very simple. It followed a towing company, showing how vehicles were taken back when people failed to pay. That alone might not sound exciting, but what really made it stand out was how everything played out on screen. The show focused on Ron Shirley and Amy Shirley, who were not quiet or ordinary in any way. They were loud, bold, and very direct, and that made people pay attention. Every episode felt like something unexpected could happen at any moment. There were arguments, shouting, and sometimes situations that looked like they could turn into fights. It felt tense, and at the same time, it felt real enough to keep people hooked. At its peak, the show was doing very well. It reached millions of viewers, and people talked about it like it was something important happening in real time. But as time went on, something slowly began to change. The way people watched television started to shift. New shows were coming out, and viewers were becoming more aware of how reality television worked behind the scenes. Even though the show looked real, it was not completely unscripted. It was described as actuality, which made it slightly different from what people usually think of as reality TV. The business itself was real. The people were real. The situations, in many cases, came from real-life events. But the way those events were shown was often changed. Scenes were stretched out, emotions were pushed higher, and moments were made more dramatic than they might have been in real life. This mix of truth and exaggeration worked well at first. It made the show exciting and hard to ignore. But over time, viewers began to notice. They started asking questions. They began to wonder how much of what they were watching was truly happening and how much was being shaped for television. Once that doubt began to grow, it became harder for the show to keep the same level of trust from its audience. At the same time, the television industry itself was changing. Networks were looking for new ideas, new formats, and new ways to keep viewers interested. What worked in 2011 did not always work in 2014. The energy around the show slowly faded, and the numbers began to drop. Another important change came when Bobby Brantley stepped away. He was not just another face on the show. He played a key role in how everything felt. His presence helped balance the personalities, and without him, something important was missing. The connection between the cast members no longer felt the same, and viewers could sense that difference. In the end, the show did not end with a big announcement or a dramatic final episode. It simply stopped. There was no major scandal, no shocking event that forced it off the air. It was a quiet ending, the kind that happens when something slowly runs its course. It was a mix of changing times, shifting interests, and small changes that added up over time. But long before the cameras ever arrived, there was a real story already in motion. Ron Shirley had started the business in 1998 with just one truck. It was not built overnight. It took years of effort, patience, and consistency. Step by step, it grew into something stable and reliable. Amy Shirley was also a major part of that journey. She was not just someone standing beside the business. She was deeply involved, bringing strength, discipline, and energy into everything she did. Together, They built something that was already strong before television ever came into the picture. So when the show ended, it did not mean everything was over. In many ways, it simply meant that one chapter had closed, while the real story continued quietly in the background, just as it had always been. So, what really happened to the people behind it all? And how did they move forward when real life, with all its challenges, finally took center stage? Let's delve deeper. Life after the spotlight and the strength to keep going. After the cameras stopped rolling and the noise of television faded away, life did not suddenly become still. Instead, it continued, just in a different way. The people who were once seen every week on screen had to return to their own paths, their own routines, and their own realities. Ron Shirley and Amy Shirley did not walk away from what they had built. They stayed with it. They continued running their towing business, showing the same level of commitment they had long before the show ever existed. The company remained active, growing steadily, with a full team and multiple trucks still operating. Instead of relying on television, they slowly adjusted to new ways of staying connected with people. Social media became one of those ways. Through short videos and updates, they found a new kind of audience. It was different from television, but it still allowed people to see what they were doing and stay connected to their story. Other members of the team also moved forward in their own ways. Bobby Brantley faced one of the most serious challenges of his life when he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. That moment changed everything. It shifted his focus away from television and towards something much more personal. After treatment and recovery, he chose a quieter life, spending more time with his family and living on a farm. Big Juicy, whose real name is Elaine McGillivray, stepped back from public attention. She chose to focus on her personal life, raising her children, and keeping things private. It was a clear decision to move away from the spotlight and create a more peaceful life. Crazy Dave, known for his energy and unpredictable nature, found a different path through music. He began working on creative projects, showing another side of himself that viewers had not fully seen before. It was a shift, but in many ways, it still reflected his personality. Cousin Johnny took perhaps the most complete step away. He disappeared from public view almost entirely. No social media, no updates, no attempts to stay in the public eye. It was a full break, a decision to leave that part of life behind completely. Swirly Earl, on the other hand, stayed close to what he knew. He continued working as a tow truck driver, remaining part of the same world that first brought him into the spotlight. For him, not much changed, and that in itself says something about consistency. But beyond all of these personal paths, there was a much deeper and more painful moment that changed everything for the Shirley family. The loss of Harley Alexander. Shirley was not something that could be explained away or moved past easily. It was sudden, violent, and deeply heartbreaking. In moments like that, many people would step away from everything. They would withdraw, close off, and try to process the pain in silence. But Ron Shirley chose a different approach. He spoke openly about faith, about strength, and about continuing forward even when it felt almost impossible. That choice did not remove the pain. It did not make the loss smaller. But it showed a kind of resilience that is not easy to understand unless someone has faced something similar. It showed that even in the darkest moments, it is still possible to keep going, step by step. The business continued. The family continued. Life continued, even though it was not the same as before. And in that continuation, there is something important to see. The story did not end when the show ended. It did not end when the spotlight disappeared. And it did not end even after tragedy struck. It simply changed shape. What remains now is not just a memory of a television show, but a real story about people who built something, faced challenges, adapted to change, and kept moving forward no matter what came their way. So after seeing how the show rose, changed, and eventually came to a quiet end, what darker and more emotional reality was waiting behind the scenes, far away from the cameras? Let's find out. Tragedy, television, and the reality behind the towing life. The events connected to Harley Alexander Shirley became one of the most painful and shocking moments linked to the family behind Lizard Lick Towing. In February 2022, his life was cut short at just 21 years old after a shooting that took place following a memorial gathering. He had gone there to honor a friend, not knowing it would turn into something so tragic. During the incident, gunfire broke out, and he was found dead later that night. Another person at the scene, Sophie Catherine Hagi, was also hit. She survived, but the injuries she suffered changed her life in a permanent way, leaving her unable to walk again. The case quickly gained attention because of how serious and heartbreaking it was. Authorities moved in to investigate, and over time, several people were arrested in connection with the shooting. Some of those involved were young, while others were adults, which made the situation even more troubling. For the Shirley family, this was not just news or a headline. It was a personal loss that brought deep pain and grief. Many people who had followed their story over the years also felt the weight of what had happened, offering support and sympathy during such a difficult time. Before this tragedy, many people had come to know the family through their television show, Lizard Lick Towing. The show itself did not begin on its own. It actually came from another program called All Worked Up, where Ron Shirley and Amy Shirley first appeared. While filming that earlier show, it became clear that they had a kind of energy and personality that stood out. They were bold, direct, and not afraid to speak their minds. This caught the attention of producers who saw something unique in them and believed they could carry their own show. That idea led to the creation of Lizard Lick Towing. The show followed their towing and recovery business, giving viewers a look into what their daily work was like. It showed how they handled difficult situations, dealt with customers, and kept their business running. For many people watching, it was something new. They had never really seen what towing work looked like up close, and the show gave them that view. The job itself is not easy, and the show made that very clear. Towing and repossession work often puts workers in tense situations. People do not like having their vehicles taken, and that can lead to anger very quickly. Tow truck drivers are often yelled at, insulted, and sometimes even threatened. In some cases, things can become dangerous, with reports of drivers being attacked while trying to do their jobs. This makes it clear that the work is not only physical, but also stressful and risky. Even with all these challenges, the job is still important. It plays a role in making sure rules are followed when it comes to payments and vehicle ownership. Without it, there would be no clear way to deal with certain situations involving unpaid debts or abandoned vehicles. The show helped bring attention to this side of the job, showing that there is more to it than people might first think. Even after it ended, Lizard Lick Towing left a strong impression. It managed to take something that many people found uninteresting and turn it into something people wanted to watch. By mixing real work with entertainment, it gave viewers a new perspective on a job that is often overlooked. While some parts were made more dramatic for television, the show still helped people understand the reality behind the work. Over time, it became more than just a show. It became something people remembered and talked about. It showed that even ordinary jobs can have stories worth telling. And even though the show is no longer on air, its impact remains, both in how people see the towing industry and in how they remember the people who were part of it. So, how did all of this turn into a television sensation filled with fame, drama, and the intense spotlight of reality TV? Keep watching for more. Fame, drama, and the reality behind the towing show. Lizard Lick Towing became one of the most talked about reality shows in the early 2010s. It aired on True TV and quickly gained strong attention from viewers across the United States. At its highest point, the show was watched by about 2.7 million people every week, which made it one of the most successful programs on the network at that time. The show followed a small towing and repossession business based in rural North Carolina. It featured Ron Shirley, Amy Shirley, and Bobby Brantley, who became well known for their strong personalities and loud, dramatic way of handling situations. The reason the show became so popular was not just the job they were doing, but the way everything was shown. Each episode was filled with tension, shouting, and emotional moments that kept viewers interested. It showed repossession work in a very dramatic way, where every situation seemed to turn into a big conflict. Because of this style, many people found it exciting and entertaining to watch. It gave viewers a sense of real-life action mixed with humor and chaos, which made it stand out from many other shows at the time. People who actually work in the towing and repossession industry also spoke out about the show. They explained that real repossession work is usually not as chaotic or violent as what was shown on screen. In real life, the job follows strict rules and procedures. Workers are trained to handle situations carefully and avoid unnecessary conflict. However, the show often displayed loud arguments, physical confrontations, and highly emotional scenes that seemed to go beyond normal work conditions. Because of this, some professionals felt the show gave the public the wrong idea about their job. They also pointed out that most repossession jobs are done in a controlled way, where safety is very important. In contrast, the show often focused on extreme moments that looked more like entertainment than real work. This difference between reality and what was shown created a gap in understanding. While viewers enjoyed the excitement, those in the industry worried that it made their profession look unsafe and unprofessional. This became one of the main criticisms of the show during and after its run. Despite these concerns, the show still had a strong impact on pop culture. Even after it ended, it did not disappear from public view. Instead, it continued to live on through online platforms. Short clips and funny moments from the show were shared on video sites and social media. Many people who had never even watched the full series still came across these clips and found them entertaining. Over time, the show became part of internet culture, where it was remembered more for its most extreme and funny moments than for its actual storyline. Because of this online presence, lizard lick towing stayed relevant long after it stopped airing on television. It turned into a type of viral content that people could easily watch, share, and comment on. This helped keep the show alive in public memory, even though new episodes were no longer being made. Today, the show is often looked at as an example of early 2010 reality television. It represents a time when TV programs focused heavily on drama, strong personalities, and emotional situations to attract viewers. Some people see it as fun entertainment that captures attention through its wild energy. Others see it as an example of how reality TV can sometimes move away from real life in order to create more excitement. In the end, the legacy of the show is mixed. It was very successful and widely watched, but it also raised questions about truth in reality television. It showed how a simple job like towing could be turned into dramatic entertainment, and how that entertainment could shape how people view a real profession. How did Ron Shirley's own journey begin? And what kind of life shaped the man behind lizard lick towing before all the fame and cameras? Let's find out. Early life, hard work, and the reality of repossession work. Ron Shirley talks in a slow and simple way about how his life began, how he grew up, and how he ended up in the world of towing and repossession work. It is not a smooth story. It is a story filled with hard work, small chances, sudden changes, and moments that pushed him in a new direction in life. Ron explains that his early life was not easy at all. He grew up in a working-class home where life was mostly about survival and doing whatever work was available. There was not much luxury, and things were not handed to him easily. Most of the time, life was about effort, daily work, and trying to get by. He describes doing different kinds of labor jobs, and one of the main ones he mentions is roofing. Roofing work, as he explains, is very hard work, done under the sun, with physical strain and long hours. He also shares that he once had dreams connected to sports, especially football. He wanted to build a future in that direction, and he was trying to work toward it while also doing jobs to support himself. But then, something unexpected happened in his life. He was struck by lightning while working on a roof. This event completely changed his direction in life. According to him, this accident stopped his football path and forced him to step into a different kind of life journey. It was not planned. It was not expected. It simply happened. And after that, things changed. After this turning point, Ron slowly moved into different types of work. Over time, he found himself in the towing and repossession business. This became the path that shaped most of his later life. It was not something he dreamed of as a child, but it became the work he ended up doing for many years. A very important part of his story is also his wife, Amy Shirley. In the interview, Ron talks about her in a very strong way, describing her as tough, strong-minded, and highly capable. He explains that Amy has a background that is not ordinary. She is described as a former powerlifter, someone who competed at a very high level of strength training. He also mentions that she has experience in MMA fighting, which shows that she is trained in combat sports and physical discipline. On top of that, she is also a licensed mortician, which is a very serious and professional field dealing with the preparation of bodies for funerals. Because of all these skills and experiences, Ron explains that Amy became a very important part of their towing business. In some repossession situations, her strong personality and fearless attitude were useful. He mentions that sometimes she would be used as a distraction during repossessions, so that vehicles could be taken while attention was focused elsewhere. This shows how unpredictable and unusual their work environment could be. The report also explains the nature of repossession work itself. Ron describes it as a job that is not calm or simple. It is often full of tension, stress, and sudden emotional reactions. When people realize their vehicles are being taken, many of them react with anger or frustration. Sometimes these reactions can become very intense and even dangerous. He explains that people can behave in unpredictable ways when they are under stress, and situations can quickly turn into arguments or even physical confrontations. He also makes it clear that danger does not always come from expected sources. Even people who look calm or harmless can react strongly when pushed into stressful situations. This is why repossession work, according to him, requires caution, awareness, and quick thinking at all times. Overall, this first part of the report shows a life shaped by struggle, unexpected events, and a very difficult kind of job that mixes business with real human emotions and conflict. It is a world where nothing is fully predictable and where every situation can change very quickly. After seeing how Ron Shirley's early struggles, risky towing work, and unexpected life changes shaped his path, one question arises. What deeper lessons about family, fatherhood, and modern life does he take away from everything he has been through? Let's take a closer look. Fatherhood, life values, family lessons, and personal beliefs. Ron Shirley also speaks in a more reflective way about life, family, values, and what he believes is missing in modern society. His words focus less on action and more on lessons, beliefs, and personal understanding of how people should live and treat each other. One of the strongest points he makes is about fatherhood. He explains that being a father is not just about having children biologically. In his view, fatherhood is something deeper than that. It is about responsibility, care, guidance, and being present in a child's life. He believes that a real father is someone who shows up, who teaches, who corrects, and who also shows love in a steady and consistent way. He explains that children need both discipline and love at the same time. Discipline is needed so that children understand rules, structure, and consequences. Love is needed so that children feel supported, safe, and understood. According to him, both sides must exist together. If one is missing, the child may grow up with an imbalance. Ron also speaks about how modern society is changing. He believes that many important values are becoming weaker over time. He talks about work ethic, honesty, loyalty, and family commitment. In his view, these values were stronger in older generations. People worked harder, stayed more loyal, and took family responsibilities more seriously. He connects the decline of these values to modern life pressures. He mentions things like social media, fast lifestyles, and the desire to make quick money without long-term effort. He feels that many people today are more focused on shortcuts instead of steady hard work. Because of this, he believes family life and personal discipline are being affected. Another important part of his story is his grandfather. Ron speaks about him with deep respect. He describes his grandfather as a World War II tank commander who went through very serious and dangerous experiences during the war. He explains that his grandfather was injured and carried physical scars from his service for the rest of his life. Even after everything, he still lived as a strong and respected figure in the family. Ron uses this story to explain what he believes real sacrifice looks like. To him, his grandfather represents courage, protection, and willingness to give everything for others. This story becomes a foundation for how he views responsibility and leadership in life. At the end of his reflection, Ron returns to the idea of family and personal strength. He explains that love, discipline, and responsibility are the most important things in building strong families. He believes that people must first learn to respect and understand themselves before they can properly love others. He warns that without self-discipline and self-respect, people may struggle in relationships and family life. What really happened when the cameras stopped rolling and they had to face life completely out of the public eye? Stay tuned for more. Life after the spotlight. The lasting reality of lizard lick towing. After lizard lick towing ended, life became very emotional and heavy for many of the people who were part of the show. Ronnie Shirley, who was once known for being loud, active, and full of energy on TV, became more focused on speaking about real-life issues. He started talking more about violence and young people making better choices. Instead of just being a TV personality, he became someone who tries to help others learn from his own pain. This shift shows how his life moved from entertainment to purpose, shaped strongly by loss and reflection. Amy Shirley also changed a lot after the tragedy. She became more quiet and stayed away from public attention. She focused more on private healing and family life. The report shows that both of them were deeply affected, but they handled their sadness in different ways. Their emotional paths were not the same, but both were shaped by grief and the need to adjust. Other people from the show also felt changes in their emotions and lives. As time passed, many of them slowly moved away from each other and from the public eye. Life became more private and less connected compared to the time when the show was active. The strong group bond they once had weakened as everyone tried to find their own direction. When the show ended, and especially after his family loss, Ronnie Shirley began to live a different kind of life. He moved away from entertainment and focused more on helping people. He started attending events where he speaks to young people about violence, bad choices, and the importance of living a better life. His message became simple and direct, centered on avoiding violence and thinking carefully before making decisions. He now uses his own life story, both the success and the pain, to guide others. This is very different from his old TV role where he was known for loud and dramatic moments. Now he is more calm and focused on meaning, purpose, and healing. His change was strongly influenced by the loss of his son and the need to find peace in a painful world. This period shows that leaving fame is not always easy. It can bring silence, emotional changes, and personal challenges. Many of them had to rebuild their lives in new ways, outside of public attention and television identity. Even though the show ended, lizard lick towing is still remembered by many people. It was not only about towing cars or fights, it was also about strong emotions, family bonds, and survival in difficult situations. What do you think about the show Lizard Lick Towing? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for staying with us as we looked into the story of Lizard Lick Towing, the rise of the show, the pain that followed, and the lives of the cast after the cameras stopped rolling. If this journey keeps you engaged, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to discover more stories. See you there.